I got to tell you guys what happened today. I went and did an inspection and for a buyer, and it was a flip home. So a flipper bought it as an investment, and he went in there and re-gutted it and just redid everything. And I got there, and there was no lockbox on it, and the current owner, the investor, had to let me in. So that was nice. I got out of my truck and I approached him and said, "Hey, how you doing? I'm here to do the inspection." And it seemed like he had a little bit of an attitude, and it's not the first time I ran into this. A lot of investors don't want me doing an inspection on their home because they're afraid I'm going to find things. And I'm used to it, but he was a little bit overboard. Like, how long are you going to take? It's going to be more than 30 minutes. And my average inspection, believe it or not, takes up to 3 hours on an average home because I do look at everything. But he went on for the next 15, 20 minutes telling me what experience he has, that he's a carpenter, he's an electrician, he's a plumber. And he said to me, "I guarantee you're not going to find anything." So because of his attitude, I felt like I was being challenged to find things. Not that when I do inspections, trust me, I look for problems, but he took it to the next level. So I said, That's fine." I didn't take his wager. I said, I just want to come here, do my job, and do the inspection. Okay. And so he walked me in. He showed me where everything is. He says, "Look, it's perfect. It's perfect. It's perfect." So I could tell you that I found at least 20 issues with this home, at least 20 of them. And then I told him about them, and he's like, he didn't say anything much. Okay. So I'm going to go over the 20 issues that I found that was supposed to be a perfectly done home. Okay. And I'll even go as far as say what the actual cost could be to repair these things. I usually don't, I don't put cost of repairs inside my inspections, but on this video, I'm going to estimate what the repairs are going to be. So this particular person, because they did the full inspection with a 4-point and a wind mitigation for Florida, it costed about $600. But without this inspection, the repairs would have cost them thousands. And I'm not kidding you. It would have been thousands. I'm not going to put any photos onto this video because the guy was upset, obviously, when I left because I, showed some stuff, and I don't want, him to see the video and say, "Oh my God, you putting video inside my house or photos inside my house." So I'm going to explain everything to it. But stay till the end because all these issues are issues that if you're buying a house that you could probably catch pretty easily. And, it'll prevent a lot of headaches. A home inspection, if you're hiring the right home inspector, is a valuable, valuable tool that you cannot let go. I don't care how good you are. Put it this way. If I was buying a house and I wasn't a home inspector already, I would definitely, find the best home inspector with the best reviews and do it. So let's get started. And remember, stay till the end because when you're buying a home, one of these could cost you a lot of money. In the meantime, do me a favor. If you like this kind of content, consider subscribing. It really does help out the channel. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it down into what I found, how I noticed it, how for you to spot it, and what the actual cost might be to fix some of this stuff, okay? So as soon as I walked in the house, I noticed fresh paint, ceiling paint, baseboard paint. That's fine. That's normal, okay? But then he had dehumidifiers running, okay? So I'm like, that's weird. For painting, you usually don't use dehumidifiers. And then he had scented candles, and it wasn't even the candles that you plug into the wall so they make scent. This is like regular candles, that you buy, like Yankee candles or something. And I found that odd. And I saw like waves, in areas on the ceiling or on the walls that seemed a little bit different of a shade than the paint right next to it. So I'm like, all right, you know what? Let me get out my moisture meter. Let me, get out my thermal, and just see what's going on. So what I did is I checked the moisture meter, and there was some really, really high readings in some areas. So then I looked under like the bathroom sinks, the kitchen sinks, and they actually had painted that area, and but there was a lot of kilts. I was like, all right, that's kind of weird. And I saw on the baseboard was rippled, like like it was, when it gets wet and then it dries and it's swollen and the casing is swollen, stuff like that. So, and I looked underneath the kitchen cabinet and stuff, and they had swells in them too. I mean, they were painted over, but you could tell they were underwater. And I'm like, hey, did you have any flooding in here? He's like, no, 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 no. Yeah, we had a little bit of an issue. I mean, he had to come clean. And I'm like, listen, the moisture readings are through the roof on this thing. So I said, can you explain what kind of receipts you did? I was like, oh, yeah, I had a plumber come in and we had a breakage and we had a fix. Okay, but he never, explained it to the sellers because he just put on there, oh, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. But obviously he knew. Okay. So basically, just my estimate. This is my estimate. You guys have to get for this particular house, ballpark, okay? For the drywall repair, the plumbing repairs, because they used accordion plumbing and, underneath the kitchen sink and bathroom sinks, which I hate. There's a couple of areas that, I could be mold. I'm not sure. I'm not a mold assessor, but, it has the telltale signs of it. So just the minor drywall and plumbing, I estimated between 300 and 1,500. Okay. If it has mold, even those small areas underneath the kitchen sink and the bathroom sinks, I estimated between 2,000 and 6,000 just for that. So after I looked at all that stuff, what I did was I saw new luxury vinyl in there, and you buy, all right. I mean, that's normal on a flip. They want to put new flooring in, gives it a thing. But it was they put it over a floating, like when you float a floor, under uneven. It was uneven. There was waves in it and all that stuff. And I'm like, that's kind of weird, because if you look at an angle, it just looked like one area was higher, then it went down to a little dip, then went back up. But you really had to kind of look for it, like look for it. But then what I did is I like carrying around marbles. Yeah, I have levels and stuff, but just simple marbles. And I put it down there, and one of them rolled towards the corner of the house, the other one rolled towards another corner, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. And so I went outside the house, and I actually saw separations, step cracking outside the house that I could fit a quarter through there, and I'm like, well, that's not good. So it looked like even the siding had like a wave in it, like it would go straight and dip down a little bit, then kind of straight a little bit again. But so I went back in there, and I'm like, I could see in the closets in the corners that they tried to float it, tried to level it or whatever. So I guarantee you, because of the cracking outside on this particular house, I guarantee you they're having some settlement issues. And to put a price on that, I couldn't put a price on that because depending on if there's if you need a structural engineer and what they're going to charge, it could run into the thousands. But I guarantee you that he did say that there was some cracking because it was on the slab. He said there was some cracking, but he filled it in. Just because you have cracks and then you cover it and then you put luxury vinyl over it, you have to think about and figure out what's causing that crack and how big that crack is. All right. So basically lifting up the vinyl, checking that out, and filling in the cracks with epoxy and doing whatever you got to do. You're talking about just do that $500 to $2,000 to do it right. But I made some phone calls, and if you had to pin this house or underpinning, you could be looking at just to level it out so it doesn't happen more. On this particular house, you're looking at about between $6,000 to $30,000. And he's like, oh, no, no, that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. I'm like, well, the cracks on the outside, it's not stucco cracks. It's actually, I could fit paper money through it. That's how big the cracks are, And yeah, he was trying to cover it up. and I felt the caulking on there, but it was still wet. So he's seen it. So, anyways, I continued. Then I looked around, and then I'm not a termite guy, okay? But new trim plates, painted heavy, fresh mulch right up to the house, all that stuff is it's people say, well, it's to make a good presentation of the house, and I kind of agree with that. But when you see like heavy caulking use around windows, around fascia, around stuff like that. I'm like, hey, what's going on here? And there was some soft spot too. Like there was some soft spots, and I could see all the caulking, and it was still soft. I guess he did it recently and everything, but you could actually poke holes. I see little holes in it in some areas that he didn't get to. And again, I'm not a termite person, but they look like termite tubes, and they look like brass and wings. Like I've seen a little evidence here and there. Okay, so you have to call a termite guy. So a termite inspection, maybe $200. All right, but if you need a treatment, you could be talking about between $800 and $2,000. And if you need to tent the place, you could again call the termite people and ask them. But the people I talked to, they said it could be anywhere from $2,000 to $15,000, depending on what they have to do. So that's what they did. I mean, they're going to call the person, but I guarantee you that once the license termite guy gets there, he's going to see pellets, he's going to see frass, he's going to see mud tubes, he's going to see patchwork on the joints and all that stuff. Okay. So then I continued. So remember, this house, basically, he's saying that I'm not going to find anything. One of the most important features was the roof. All right. And the roof, when I pulled up, looked a little bit weak. So, I climbed on the roof and I was stepping. And some areas felt really, really soft. And we'll get to that later. Okay. But it felt soft. But I don't know what he used, but he kind of, it looked like a spray paint. I don't know if it was a new foam cleaning or whatever they used, but it had this weird look to it, okay? And not only did it have soft spots, but I knew the roof was older, but it just seemed like it was weird, like it was like painted or something. And I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, all the granules are gone. So I walked over to the gutters, and the gutters were like loaded up with granules. And I'm like, wow, this thing is missing a lot of granules and stuff. He goes, yeah, I had it treated. There's a company goes around, they put this foam on there, and it extends the life of the roof. And I'm like, yeah, that's not happening with this roof. All right. And plus, I guarantee you, when they rip off this sheathing, that's the shingles, and they're going to have to replace a lot of the panels on there. Okay. So now you're looking at just, if you just want to fix the soft spots, you're looking maybe $2,000. But again, it probably needs a new roof. And I say that roof is going to cost about $15,000. So, hey, there's some more money. Remember, perfect house. All right. So now I'm going to go and check the HVAC. Okay. The HVAC outside was a 2024, the condenser. Great, right? Perfect. And then I'm like, all right, let me go look at the air handler. Okay. Now, the condenser is a 4-ton. Then I went up to, no, it was a 3-ton. I'm sorry. It was a 3-ton. Then I went up to the attic because that's where the air handler was. And the air handler is rated for 3.5-ton. But here's the deal. That air handler up in the attic was a 2006. So they changed the condenser, but not the air handler. Maybe because they didn't think anybody's going to see it because it's up in the attic. But they're mismatched anyways. And then when you measure the temperature, from the input to the output, it's off balance. So the air handler is shot. I looked in the pan, and the pan was all rusted. So you had backups on it before, and they did change the temperature control. But come on, if you're gonna change the temperature control and the condenser, change the air handler. I mean, that's being really, really cheap, because a lot of warranties, so you guys know, is if you only change a condenser or air handler, most manufacturers will give you 5 years. But if you change them both at the same time and they match, you get 10 years on a lot of them. But now that the way he set it up and everything, I'm saying that he's probably going to have to spend another 4 grand, to redo the air handler. And I won't even get into the ductwork. The ductwork was old. I put my thermo up there, and you could see. I'm like, I got into the attic, and I'm like, hey, it's kind of cool up here. I mean, the outside temperature is 90 degrees, and I'm up in an attic, and it's kind of cooler. So obviously, I knew right away that there was leaks all over the place. Shoot my thermo, boom, I could see all the leaks. So now you got to change all the duct work. So I mean, I see where he didn't even put duct tape, like the kind that you use for duct work to seal it. He just put duct tape, actually, in some areas. So he knew about it too. But now you're looking at another 3 to 5,000. Okay. Not only that, but he puts fresh insulation, blown insulation in there. But if you move the fresh insulation, you could see the junction box that he covered, that didn't have caps on it, the wiring, and you could tell that there was rodents up there at one time because the fresh stuff is on top. But if you move the stuff underneath, it's disgusting. I mean, they should have vacuumed it all out, took out all the insulation, sealed all the areas around the outside of the house, and then put the fresh insulation in. But no, they just figured, and a lot of flippers do this, they just figured just blow everything in. So we're up to thousands of dollars already from a house, again, that I shouldn't have found anything. Electrical. Okay? So he put new outlets in. Okay. I would say 25% of them weren't grounded correctly. He installed what appeared to be GFCIs where he was supposed to in the kitchen and in the bathrooms, but they didn't operate correctly, so he didn't wire them up correctly. Some of the outlets were hooked up reverse, so you had a hot neutral or open ground. I was running into a lot of that stuff. So you need an electrician to get in there and just redo everything. So you're talking about maybe another $1,500. Should I keep going? Why not? I hope he watches this video. All right, let's talk about the plumbing right now, okay? So now I'm up to the plumbing section, okay? So he put new faucets in there, but he had some galvanized plumbing in there, and he knew that a lot of insurance companies don't like galvanized plumbing. So he actually painted the galvanized plumbing. Never seen that before. The P-traps underneath were installed backwards. He put quick cosmetic fixes in there. I mean, he ran between copper and then he ran PEX. And then when I ran the water, it would drain slowly. And I'm like, okay, that's not good because obviously he used accordion plumbing. He put everything in backwards. There was gruggling going on. The water pressure was low. When you flush the toilet and you have a sink running, you know how the pressure just drops dramatically, but this was really dramatic, The water heater was over 10 years old. I could keep going on the plumbing issues. I mean, yes, the water heater works. No rust. It was clean, but it was over 10 years old. All right. So I'm like, you got to fix these plumbing issues. Okay. You have to look underneath when you guys buying houses, you really have to look under and see if they did it themselves or they had a professional. Because trust me, professional plumbers do not use accordion plumbing. They do it correctly. And you don't want to mix match everything, galvanized with copper and then PEX. And then it was just like, so I'm estimating 3. And I guarantee you, if there's galvanized plumbing in that house and it's connected to copper and stuff, you could have galvanic reaction. There's so much things that could go wrong. I'm saying he probably, to do it right and redo this plumbing, maybe 10,000. And, and I told the guy, so, and then here's the other big thing, okay? I go into the kitchen, and he had an open custom kitchen. And I'm like, all right. I mean, it looks good. And then it just looked weird. And, and it had thick drywall beams, And I'm like, was this open before? He goes, no, I opened it. And I'm like, dude, the ceiling is a little bit sagging over there. I can see the line cracks, radiating from the openings, post landing, the subfloor, something didn't seem right. And then I realized that he cut out a support beam. I'm like, this wasn't closed. He goes, yeah. I said, I guarantee you there was a support beam here and a support beam there. And he's like, well, yeah, but it didn't really need it. I'm like, yeah, because if you guys are in there, just look at it. So if the ceiling's sagging and you see ridge lines, you see cracks, radiating from the post, of course it needs it. So now you do need a structural engineer. You're going to require permits. You're going to need an engineer's letter. He just opened from just removing a support beam of that magnitude caused a whole bunch of trouble. Retrofits fixing, some people say, oh, you could probably fix it all for $3,000, but I could go up to $20,000. I guarantee you. I knew the area of the home that I was inspecting, and I knew the homes in the area got flooded. All right. So one of the first things I want to see if water got into this house, because the backyard, the land sloped towards the home. So I looked at the lower cabinets, the boxes, the baseboard, the fresh paint I was telling you about, and everything was like pretty swollen. Some of it was new, some of it was original, but it was, it was painted or caulked or replaced. And that was a big telltale sign. Okay. There was soft spots, and basically he didn't disclose that stuff. This house was flooded. Okay. Because just look at the cabinets, look underneath, the cabinets, and you'll see signs. I know people could cover it up or they could replace it, but so I'm saying maybe another 4,000 or 5,000. And the house had a weird smell in it. So, you could do an air quality test and send it out, because I saw cans of kilts in the garage and primer and all that stuff. And I recommend doing air quality. I did not do an air quality test for this one, but I do recommend an air quality test. And then what we do is we do cartridges, and we take the samples and we send them to the lab so they could, tell you if there's what's in the air or if it's not, because mold and air quality is really, really important. So between the plumbing, the possible termites, the possible mold, again, I'm not licensed for that stuff, but between the roof, pretty much everything he said was perfect. There was a problem. I'm in thousands of dollars, but there was a big oak tree in front of this house, and the client said, I said, hey, I recommend the sewer scope. So I find the clean out. I put the sewer camera in there. Sure enough, I'm in maybe 35 feet. Okay. And there's a big crack. The root went right through the sewer line. And you would not notice that unless you did a sewer scope. And that alone, I've seen that go from $5,000 to $10,000, because you're responsible from the city connection back towards the house. So what if the crack is underneath the foundation? Are you going to be jackhammering? Like a sewer scope costs what, $250, $300 on average from an inspector? Definitely recommend to do that. But again, after finding all these issues from a person, my point of this video is from a person that said there's nothing wrong with it, was irritated that I was there, I say the house probably needs another $50,000 worth of work. Literally. Just to get it to a point. So obviously I did not go into everything with him, but I told him that I'm done. They'll have the reports, and I don't know what the clients decided to do, but I have a feeling that they're going to walk away from this house. So this $600 they spent, it's probably the best $600 they ever spent on this investment, because it literally saved them thousands and thousands of dollars. Anyways, I wanted to do this video for you guys, explain to you what happened during this home inspection. And the guy, You know, he was irritated that I was there, but listen, that's part of it. You know, people don't like people inspecting their own houses because everybody thinks their own houses are perfect. Anyways, consider subscribing. It really does help out the channel. It's greatly appreciated. And thanks you for watching this till the end. And watch this video right here. I picked it out just for you guys. And remember, if you need a real estate agent anywhere in Florida or the United States, my phone number is below. Thank you, and I'll talk to you later.